Yeah, I want to make a comment about African Americans and why I feel that they are more likely to be religious versus other demographics, especially white males.
Sure.
Okay, you can hear me? Okay, sorry. I'm
Yeah,
listening to there's lag on the video.
Yeah, don't pay any attention to the video, and also this speaker's kind of loud. I'll just let the control room know. But go ahead.
Okay, this gets a bit politically incorrect at points, but my theory is that given the options people have had in the past and like the history, I feel that African Americans had to, in order to survive, had to be more submissive and kind of fall into whatever's most culturally acceptable. And I think that's something that kind of gets passed down. Like my dad's actually a very learned person. He's an engineer. He was actually a physics major, has a degree in physics and engineering, but he's still very religious just because, you know, in order to get to where he needed to be, not ruffle any feathers, he was very, disciplined with religion and was just very quiet and submissive, a very submissive guy. That's kind of my comment on that. Versus white male, I guess, you're kind of, I don't know, you just have more option to think and feel and do however you feel.
Sure, traditionally.
I mean, it's
traditionally, white males have been and for the most part continue to be the sort of privileged class in, you know, the de facto. You don't run up against much opposition in American culture, for sure.
Yeah, and I feel that, like, my generation growing up the way I do now, I don't really see the same kind of restrictions, or I don't feel like I have to be as threatened by authority as, like, my father's generation. So, okay. I mean, I'm obviously I'm an atheist, just recently came out in the last year, and it's, there's still a lot of resistance, it's very awkward around a lot of my black friends and other, like, minority friends, but I find, it's a lot more of my white friends that feel comfortable, expressing their thoughts beyond just what's the status quo and what's just in front of you, the mechanics of why things are, rather than just looking at what you see,
Yeah, there's a lot of different groups, and it's not just, African Americans or women or gays. There's a number of different groups that are going to, and not necessarily through any intentional or overt kind of sexist or racism.
Exactly. It's just an externality of ways things are played out. It's just an unintended consequence of.
And one of the best things that we can do, we've talked about this issue in a number of different ways before. My take on this, by and large, is I've overcome a lot of kind of narrow-minded thinking that was grilled into me early on. And what I try to do is not care at all about the sex or color or any of those other characteristics of an individual I'm interacting with any more than I would about their hair color or whether or not they're left-handed. And it's not always the easiest thing to do because there are real differences. There are real differences between men and women. There are real differences culturally between how individuals are raised, and they're going to show up and they're going to affect interaction. And the best thing that I think we can do is, by and large, strive to ignore them and focus on the fact that we are all, in fact, human beings with similar minds and goals and lives and things that we, care about.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I mean, as I mature as a person, I find my circle of friends becoming, a little more constricted. It's, not so much space and not a whole lot of people as it used to be. Like, it's becoming a much smaller subset.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of that is, as you mature, you become less willing to compromise who you are just to keep someone as a friend, because if you have to compromise part of who you are, then they're not much of a friend.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then and that actually kind of brings me to my question. One of my best friends, super extremely intelligent, left-handed genius kind of person, but he is incredibly religious. But it's funny though, he's a very open-minded person. So he's what I think you coined this term, a functional atheist, pretty much. He does what he feels is right morally based on his own moral compass, which is informed by like the Judeo-Christian values. But I mean, I've had the conversation with him, like, okay, if you were born in China and your everything that is informed by that experience, wouldn't you don't you see how those two conflicting paradigms kind of make the whole thing garbage? And he never really has an answer for that, and I feel like I'm not really getting through to him, but he does see my point. It's really tough. I feel like I can kind of get him to like let go of the religious thing altogether, but it's really tough to just get through to somebody who's so close to being, you know, he's, like you say, he's a functional atheist, but he still holds on to some things that are kind of ridiculous. Like, he'll go against some things in the Bible, but if I take the Lord's name in vain, that still bothers him. I'm like, you stand in your own way, but, you know, it's frustrating, I guess.
Yeah, and it kind of just goes to show how indoctrination works. I mean, this idea that taking the Lord's name in vain, you know, words have some kind of magical meaning, you know, that they can cause harm. And I mean, that's really where this whole blasphemy concept comes from. It's this idea that, you know, if you use someone's name in a bad way, you would call evil spirits down on them. You know, it's really magical thinking. But it's very interesting how that he was probably thoroughly indoctrinated as a child, and it's very difficult to let go of that.
And that's odd because we both were, you know, very traditional conservative church backgrounds, and we both kind of evolved in our thinking to at least see other perspectives. But he's not so much acting on it as much as I am. It's really frustrating. But I mean, I don't want to take too much more time. I know you got a lot of callers, but.
No,
I'm glad you guys are doing your show, and you know, it's good to get this off my chest and, you know, kind of talk about that.
Well, and I'm glad you called because we actually got an email this week from an atheist, a black atheist, who was a little offended by one of our video clips because I guess since we had someone call the show probably a year and a half ago asking about black atheists, and this periodically comes up. We've had a lot of people contact us and say, hey, you know, I'm African American and I'm an atheist and we do exist and stuff like that. But this guy was kind of offended, and he was saying, you know, why did you ask the question, why are black people so religious? And I don't actually think we've ever asked that question on the show.
Well,
I think other people have.
Yeah, there was an accusation that we had gone under the assumption that the African American community tends to be more religious than other.
I mean, nobody's sitting with the data in front of them, but I mean, as an African American, I would kind of agree with that statement. Not that that necessarily validates it, but I mean, yeah, from my experience, being an African American, yes, we are more religious as a population than most. So I mean.
Yeah, and my big kind of quandary about the whole issue is that I can't possibly put myself in their shoes and in their mind to the extent that it would really be necessary. But it seems to me that if you compared the average white male with the average African American male, one of them clearly has less reason to have any interest at all in Christianity.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a bit of a puzzle.
But from your perspective, you have a more broader view.
Sure.
From someone who's African American, like, well, you know, yes, they see the same history, but through a much different context. They see it as a delivery from, you know, slavery. No, they don't look back further back at, well, you were kind of brought into this mess and then delivered from it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and some people can say, oh, it's a blessing. You can almost feel privileged that, well, look at West Africa now. It's not as good as being in America now. So yeah, you know, there's a couple generations of just some people's entire lives being just, you know, horrible.
Yeah, this kind of tap dancing going on.
Yeah, because a lot of things that really suck about West Africa are directly related to the number of missionaries that have gone there and dabbled in people's culture and promoted superstition over reason. You know, and that's not to discount the good things that people have done with providing medical care and feeding people and stuff like that, but you know, that comes at a cost.
So there's one other thing I wanted to get to before we let you go, and that was there was a note on here that you were asking about. You're in Dallas, and you were asking for suggestions on finding other atheists to socialize with.
Yeah, and I was kind of wondering, when you guys do get together, what's the, I just don't know, like, I don't want to just sit around and just kind of talk about, I feel this, I feel like that. You know, it's kind of like, I don't want to go to like a church type thing. I don't know. I'm just kind of wondering.
Well, then there are a couple of atheist groups in the Dallas area, including the North Texas Church of Free Thought, which is more of a church type environment. It's kind of like a Free Thinkers Unitarian Universalist church, where they're building a community, focusing on families in a real way rather than what focus on the family does. But there's a number of groups up in the Dallas area, and I'm sure that any number of them would love to have you contact them. The thing is, what goes on at these atheist meetings?
Yeah.
Well, for example, we have happy hours on Thursday, and what gets talked about on any given Thursday is entirely dependent on who shows up. There may be quite a few people sitting around bashing religions. There may be some people discussing a religion or atheism or skepticism at a sort of higher level of discussion. And the subjects may never come up. We've had discussions and debates about free will, identity, and sometimes it's just you're sitting around drinking and talking about movies and things that you enjoy doing. It's just a way to hang out with other people. And so I would suggest that anybody who is looking for an atheist group, who goes to a meeting and doesn't necessarily find it to their liking, go to a couple. Because most of the groups that I've dealt with, you're going to get a different turnout at different events. And what goes on is going to vary depending on who's there and what kind of mood everybody's in. So.
Okay. Okay, and you said, what was it? North Texas?
North Texas Church of Free Thought is one of them, and then there's also the Dallas area atheists, and there's one other group up there, but I'm forgetting the name, and now they're going to kill me because is it? Metroplex Atheists.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
And you should probably check Meetup also, because a lot of these groups, smaller groups, will post on on Meetup, and that's the only place you'll find them. But yeah, and like Matt said, kind of shop around, go to several meetings before you make up your mind about a group, because one of the things about the ACA is that we have a broad range of activities that we offer to people, and we're not trying to be all things to all people. So if you come to some ACA meetings and it's not for you, and you prefer one of the other atheist or secular groups in the Austin area, we're very happy that we have those available.
Sure.
Because we understand that not everyone's going to like the same thing.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, including the UU Church, the Ethical Society of Boston. But even within the ACA, there are different people in different activities.
Yep.
For example, at the lecture, then there are at the happy hour, which is different from the dinner after the show, which is different from Godless Gamers, which is taking place tomorrow night at my place, where basically we sit around and play board games and stuff. And
No, I might have to come check you guys out. My brother's actually a student at UT, so I might come down there and stay with him for a weekend and maybe come meet up with you guys.
Come on
sounds like a
down.
plan. And on that note, Brandon, I gotta let you go because we got a shorter show and the lines are all full. But I appreciate the call.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Great, thanks.
Bye.
We've got, is it Clayton in Sicily?
Yeah, that's me.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Pretty well.
Yeah. I'm calling in because I have a theory on the existence of our universe and the existence of God.
Okay.
And I've wrote a one-page summary about it, and I'd like to read it to you.
How long of a page is it?
It's a very short page.
Go for it.
Okay.
Before there was anything in our universe, there was nothing. But how could something come to exist from nothing? Nothing must be something, right? Not in my theory. My theory is that there is always an infinite amount of nothing outside of something, and that something is continually produced wherever there is nothing. What that something is the conscience of an unborn universe, and these consciences are also continually being produced. Our universe was at one time one of those unborn universes, but something happened. Just as it does for all unborn universes, its conscience began to think. But what would the conscience of nothing think about? It would think about what it is, because it wouldn't know, and this thought would continually build up in the conscience until it was so compressed that the pressure would cause the conscience to explode into a big bang. What I'm saying is that thought is the first form of energy that has ever existed, and that everything in our universe is just another form of this energy. I believe that the energy, that is everything in our universe, is the God of our universe, and that God has always known everything there is to know about the universe. In the beginning, God's knowledge was very limited, but now it is very complex because everything that has been created from that original thought energy is an extension of God's consciousness.